of the world, where the cell signal dies and the sun sets just a little faster than you expect. That's where they wait. Not monsters with claws or fangs, but people. Flesh and blood, sometimes silent, sometimes smiling, but always watching. Welcome back to Deadscape Diaries, where we dive into real terror in forgotten places, strange encounters in familiar woods, and the kind of stories that crawl under your skin and refuse to let go. Tonight's story isn't about ghosts. It's not about demons or cryptids lurking in the trees. No, this one's grounded in something worse, something far more dangerous than the paranormal. Because sometimes the most terrifying thing you can encounter out in the middle of nowhere is another person. This is The Man in the Timberline, a true encounter with isolation, instinct, and the gut-wrenching realization that you might not be alone on that trail after all. When I was 17, my family moved from the Texas Gulf Coast to rural Mississippi. My dad had landed a new job managing a renovation project out near Jackson, and with housing cheap in the countryside, we settled into a rundown cottage at the edge of a half-forgotten farming village. I say village, but really it was more like a place where the road just happened to pass through a few weather-worn houses, a tiny church and a gas station that also sold worms, cigarettes, and expired cans of ravioli. The town was quiet, too quiet. I didn't have any friends nearby, and the patchy cell signal meant most of the afternoons were spent offline, but we had a scrappy blue heeler mix named Duke, and he kept me company when I wandered the property or explored the woods out back. A few weeks into the move, I found a narrow path just past treeline. Looked like an old service trail, overgrown, rutted from what might have once been truck tires, and lines with metal rail spurs half buried in the mud and moss. Later, I found out it was an abandoned timber trail from decades back. The county still technically owned it, but no one maintained it anymore. Duke and I made that trail our second home. We'd walk it every weekend, sometimes for hours. I found rusted out tools, forgotten deer stands, and even a collapsed hunting blind that had partially been popped up with sticks and brush. Someone had once tried to turn it into a little hut. Looked like a teepee made of logs and branches barely held together. That teepee became a weird little game for us. I'd duck inside and crouch low, listening as Duke trotted in confused circles outside, barking, tail wagging. He never figured out he could just come inside. It was our strange little ritual, and it never got old. Most days we never saw another soul out there, but there was one day I'll never forget. It was early October, still warm, but the leaves had just begun turning. I asked my dad to drop me off at the trailhead while he ran errands in town. The drive was a good 20 minutes down the back roads, and the plan was that he'd come pick me up in 2 or 3 hours. Seemed simple enough. We got there around 5 in the evening. The sun was already low, slanting through the trees in streaks of orange and gold. Duke bolted out of the truck the second the door opened, and my dad reminded me, "Same pickup spot. I'll be back by dark." I gave him a thumbs up and watched the truck disappear around the bend, gravel crunching beneath the tires. Then it was just me, Duke, and the whispering pines. The walk started off like any other. I followed our usual loop through the timber trail, past the hollow tree that always made Duke bark for no reason, and even spent a few minutes hiding in the old teepee for old time's sake. But as the light started to shift from golden to blue, I figured it was time to make my way back towards the pickup point. That's when it happened. I'd taken a narrow deer path to shave off some time, one I'd walked before without issue. As we rounded the bend, I glanced back out of habit, just a quick look over my shoulder. There, maybe 30 feet back, was a man. I didn't hear him approach, didn't notice any footsteps. He had just appeared, like he'd stepped out from between the trees. He was tall, pale-skinned, wearing what looked like dark jeans and a light gray windbreaker. He wasn't carrying anything, wasn't walking fast, but something about him was just off. It's hard to explain. It wasn't what he looked like. He wasn't doing anything obviously threatening, but the way he walked, it felt wrong, deliberate, like he was trying to walk normally, but was just a little too smooth, a little too steady. No bounce in his step, no shift in his weight. I felt the hair on the back of my neck stand up. Trying to act casual, I clipped Duke's leash back on and picked up the pace. I didn't want to spook him, or myself, but I also didn't want the man getting any closer. As I pushed ahead, I kept glancing behind me. The man was still there, keeping pace, maybe 15 feet now. No phone service. No way to call for help. My heart was pounding so hard I could barely hear Duke's nervous whimpering. We broke out of the path onto the wider trail that led to the parking lot. Dusk was heavy now, the deep purple color where everything turns into shadow. But I could still see, still make out the man that was behind me, closer, no more than 10 feet. I tried not to run, tried to act like I hadn't noticed him at all. Maybe he was just a hiker, maybe he was lost, maybe I was being paranoid. That's what I told myself, but my instincts screamed otherwise. I finally reached the clearing where the gravel lot sat next to the weathered picnic bench, but my dad wasn't there. There was only one vehicle in the lot, a battered silver pickup truck, lights on, engine running, facing the woods, the driver's silhouette sat unmoving behind the wheel. It wasn't my dad's truck. With nowhere else to go, I sat down at the bench, Duke pressed close to my leg. He whined, high-pitched and constant, and started pawing at the dirt beneath the bench, digging like he was trying to hide. I checked my phone again. No signal. I kept my eyes fixed on the phone screen, pretending to scroll, pretending not to notice the man stepping out of the woods. He didn't walk towards me. He didn't say anything. He went straight to the truck, got in, and shut the door. And just sat there, with the headlights still off, engine still running. No movement, no departure, just waiting. 10 minutes passed, then 20. No text, no calls. My dad was late. And that man stayed in his truck, doing nothing, just sitting, staring, idling in place. That was the longest 20 minutes of my life. I kept telling myself he was just resting, maybe waiting for someone, but Duke never stopped whining, never stopped digging, and I never stopped watching those headlights. Eventually, finally, he backed out of the lot, turned and disappeared down the road. 10 minutes later, my dad rolled in looking confused and apologetic. "Oh heck, I completely forgot I had to come get you," he said, rubbing the back of his neck. Time got away from me. I didn't say a word on the ride home, and I never went back to that trail again. There's a special kind of fear that settles in when logic fails you, when your brain tells you it's probably nothing, but your body, your instincts, scream that you're in danger. That's the fear you don't forget, the kind that lingers with you long after the headlights vanish and the trail is empty. What makes this story hit harder is its simplicity. No gore, no jump scares, just a single man, a quiet truck, and too many unanswered questions. That's the reality of horror. It doesn't always wear a costume. Sometimes it just sits there, idling in the dark, waiting for you to look away. Thank you for joining me tonight on Deadscape Diaries. If this story stirred something in you, or reminded you of a moment where you felt eyes on your back and you couldn't explain why, drop it in the comments. You never know who else might have felt that same chill. Until next time, stay safe, stay aware, and never forget, some paths were never meant to be walked alone.